welcome to this week's Dragonblade Unplugged chat. I'm so glad you could join us here in between. We're on New Year's Eve, so hopefully everybody has fantastic plans for ringing in the new year. But in the meantime, we have Dragonblade authors Anna St. and Chantry Dawes with us. And also Elise Marion has a release this week. I'll talk about that one too. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Anna, can we start with your book? And would you like to say the title, please?
Well, there's been some discussion over the pronunciation of Marquess, but it's because my book spells it Marquess, and so that's Marquess, according to Google.
And the author, which we're going to take as gospel, and the author, which we're going to take as gospel.
Is right. So Marquess of Mischief, and the Marquess of Mischief is really the Marquess of Banbury. Christopher Banbury is one of the friends. There are actually 4 childhood friends that went to Eton together and forged a friendship, got in all kinds of misadventures and adventures, and then as they left Eton, they stayed together as friends and became much more than friends. They've forged life adventures with that built up a level of trust that you don't typically see even in families. And so they've become more like brothers than friends. And this book focuses on Christopher. He was introduced actually in the Prelude book, which was The Lion's Prey, part of the Lion's Den series. And the first book was The Earl of Excess, which actually focused on the War of 1812. It was a regency, but it's the War of 1812. Was actually the last battle of the War of 1812. So that was his book, Matthew's book, and this is Christopher's book. Christopher has had to become the Marquess because not anything that he wanted. He was the second son, always figured that he would be able to do what he wanted to do. He came out of the military and he's working for the crown, has no plans to leave that work. He likes the spy business and actually has taken on a case where there are whisperings about something that goes against the Prince Regent. And so he's supposed to meet somebody at a museum. When he goes there, he runs into a friend of his sister's, Lady Diana, who has been the toast of the town just the season before. And coming back from that season, she actually experienced a carriage accident that left her blind. So she's grappling with being blind, and she's trying to attend events and things like that because her mother really believes that she will still find that happily ever after, that love relationship that she wants for her daughter. And so she goes to these events, and she goes with her friend, who's actually Christopher's sister. That's her dearest friend. And they have gone on an excursion to this museum, which happens to be the place that Christopher's supposed to be meeting a contact. Well, while they're there, Diana gets tired, decides to sit down, and she's sitting behind a column, and there's some discussion that starts behind her. And what she overhears is a plot to kill the Prince Regent, which frightens her because she's afraid that she was seen and easily identified. And so Christopher walks in and he sees her in a panic. The men have gone because they haven't realized yet. They realize a little later that there was someone that might have been there, but he gets her out of there, and they begin. That was the first time he really took notice of her, because she's been friends with his family for all these years, but until he actually started trying to help her through this crisis, their friendship blooms. And part of that friendship, or part of their romance, is how he tenderly helps her get used to being blind and makes her understand that she's still somebody that's valued. So that's part of the romance that I built into the story. It was a lot of fun to do that. It was certainly something different to write about someone who loses their sight. So that's a lot that when you're writing, you're having to rely on the other senses, and it's an active thing that you're paying attention to. So that was kind of an experience that I enjoyed throughout the book. But the book is about their romance and the adventure that runs alongside it. And they actually realize that they have feelings for each other, but they're not sure if they'll even make it to a happily ever after. So that's the book.
Oh, wow. That sounds good.
Thank you.
It does. It's the second book in the Rakes of Mayhem series. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right.
That one I knew how to say. Rakes of Mayhem is easy. There was no question about that.
No more quests. No more quests.
No more quests. No more quests. So did you have to do any special research to write a blind character? Something, because I can imagine that that's a really interesting, and also to be able to do it respectfully in a way that, you know, honors people's challenges.
I did a lot of research because there's a lot of discussion on Google and places like that where the other senses become heightened, and there's disagreement in some places that that's actually something that happens. But I took it that it would happen because I figure that if you're going to lose one sense, you're going to become more reliant on the others, and that's the perspective that I gave it. So a lot of times I know you're gonna laugh. I blindfolded myself sometimes and would try to
I was wondering about that. I just because.
Well, I mean, I really wanted to kind of figure out what I would rely on. You know, your height. There's a heightened sense of hearing. There's a sense of smell. There's a sense of touch that I think must heighten to some degree. Maybe there's one that you become more dependent on than the others. I don't know, but it was certainly an experience. And I think the hardest part of the whole thing was making sure that throughout the book I remained consistent with the fact, with her being able to hear and not see and that kind of thing until she possibly could.
Yeah.
So
I think you put yourself in your character, and that's a interesting position to have to put yourself in and maintain through the whole way. It would be terrifying too to overhear something that is dangerous and not be able to tell whether the people are gone or not. It's whether it's safe to come out or who you can go to for help or any of those kind of things. It would be very scary.
Right. And she had been to the museum many times as a sighted person, but, now she's been, sorry. Let me just hold on for a second.
You go ahead and do that part. We'll go ahead and skip over to Chantry's book. Yours is too.
That's okay.
It's like, oh, she's back.
Well, she's back.
I'm back. I just hung up on them because it's usually spam. So I didn't even.
Okay.
If it was somebody that really wanted to speak to me, they'll call back. If it's my daughter, she'll call on my cell phone. Sorry.
There you go.
What I was going to say is that she's lost her sight and she's been without sight for 6 months. So she's still getting used to everything. And she's, sees herself now as a wallflower as opposed to what she had been before, where she was, she had all these people that were so engaged and interested in her. Now she sits by and no one really pays attention to her.
Yeah.
The story starts where he overhears a couple of mischief makers talking about attacking a young girl who can't see, and they make mention of another girl that's always with her, like a mother hen, and he comes to realize that that's his sister and Diana. But until he, so that's kind of happened, and then he finds her in the museum, so he is really engaged in trying to protect her.
Yeah,
very good.
That makes sense. Yeah. Wow. And I love that all the feelings that would bring out in him, that, like all the protective kind of feelings. So cool.
I had fun.
I bet you did. So Chantry, your book is the second book in the Aldeby Park series?
The Aldeby Park series, which is an actual place.
I remember we talked about the racehorses before. I thought that was so fascinating. This one's thoroughly besotted.
Yes, this is Thoroughly Besotted, which is the second book. It follows Thoroughly in Love. And the whole series will be named Thoroughly Something because it is based on the origin of the thoroughbred racehorse, which one of the very first ones came, or I shouldn't say came, they were bred at Aldeby Park. They were Arabian horses. Because England was quite involved in the Persian Empire and the Ottoman Empire and the Arabian Empire. So that's when they started bringing these horses over to England and crossbreeding them with some of the heavier wagon horses to get a really nice, refined, and elegant riding horse, which became the thoroughbred horse. It was the advent of steeplechasing and carriage racing and just the beautiful park horses for the ladies. And I was just so intrigued on how do you train a horse to handle somebody sitting on it sideways with all these skirts?
Yeah.
So it got me thinking, and that's where I wanted to start with this Aldby Park series, which is it's a mom who is the first book, and her 3 daughters who are trying to save this estate because her husband was murdered for the horse, actually. And this is the second book, and this is the oldest daughter who, after having her father murdered and seeing what all these horses went through because people were trying to kill them and take them, she's terrified of riding, which anybody in the horse universe can understand that. You know, you go through these phases in your life where something that was your greatest passion or your greatest skill, something happens and you become afraid to take it up and continue with it. So here's the oldest daughter. Her mother's on her honeymoon with this duke that she ended up with in the first book. And she's supposed to be continuing to ride these horses. And the duke has left behind his best friend, who is named Pasha. And it turns out that Pasha is a prince of Persia. He is also called the Persian assassin. And he is there to protect the 3 girls.
Okay.
And he's
there to do. I'm a little worried there for a minute, but I'm feeling much better now.
Why? What did you think I said? He's a prince. His name is Pasha, which actually is a military title. But he's there to protect the girls. And he is a very unassuming, very quiet, very, very gentle, mild-mannered man. And they treat him like a brother. He's just this easy, nice, sweet, good little puppy kind of guy. But unbeknownst to them, he is called the Persian assassin. And that's why the Duke left him there. And sure enough, the men that want to take over the throne in Persia are sent to kill him. And so the oldest daughter is with him, Julia, and she keeps treating him like a brother. And he really has a crush on her. He is madly in love with her. So they get attacked in the park, and she starts thinking she's defending him. And little does she know that he's here flinging knives right and left very secretly. And she has no clue. She thinks she's done it, and she's very proud of herself. And little by little, she starts to figure out there's no way she could have done all that. And something else must have happened. So Pasha's mother shows up from Persia to bring him home. And if you read the first book, the Darley girls have a very crazy, tiny little Scottish aunt who's very mischievous and quite the matchmaker. And she, of course, gets into it with Pasha's mother, who is the supreme royal majesty of...
Oh, wow. That
and
sounds good.
These 2 old ladies just
so
go
fun.
at it. And I had a blast writing them. I love to insert humor. Anyway, the aunt is determined that Pasha is for her great niece, Julia. And Pasha's mother is determined that he's going to marry somebody of Persian descent. And so they go through quite a bit of adventures with the assassins. And it also turns out that Pasha's mother has done some things herself to try to get rid of Julia. And once again, it takes the 2 coming together to keep each other safe and to find their way to their happily ever after, which of course they do. But it's just,
That sounds like so much fun.
It was fascinating. And I had no intention of having a Persian prince in there, but he just kind of grew. And Persia had such a massive influence on the Regency era. Anybody that's into research is going to find that a lot of the cosmetics at that time had names like the rouge was the most popular rouge at the time was Bloom of Persia, because they thought the Persian women were so beautiful that they would copy, all the different makeups they did. Hair dyeing, was originated in Persia, and kohl. The Persian women like to enlarge their eyebrows. So the grandmother, not the grandmother, Pasha's mother, her eyebrows intersect. So she just has these big, thick black eyebrows, which they considered it beautiful. But here's, the Darley girls and their Aunt Eggy looking at her like, wow. And of course, she smokes a water
I imagine
pipe,
the aunt had something to say that one.
Yeah. She smokes, some hashish. And that actually comes into play because they have to go to a ball and they need a diversion. So the two old ladies are going to smoke some hashish for a diversion at the ball.
That sounds fun.
That sounds like so much fun. So we are airing our brand new website on the first of the year. I'm so excited about it. You guys haven't seen it. It's gorgeous. Dragonblade's website, and your author interview is going to be one of the first posts that goes up on the website, Chantry. And when I was putting it up today, the pictures you sent, you have a picture of yourself in your riding gear and your horse. So you obviously ride now as well. Do you have horses? I think you said when we talked about Thoroughly in Love that you have horses.
I do.
Have you always had them?
I've been riding for I've been riding for like 40 years. As a single mom, I needed to find something with my four boys. And I know horses, and I know children, and I know writing, and I wasn't paying the bills. So I started teaching, and I had 150 Spire College team and a whole bunch of horses, and down to 3 horses. They're old. 2 of them are old, and I retired college team because my ghostwriting career took off, and I was doing extremely well the person that I wrote for. And I got tired of all the accolades sellers. I was writing for her. So I wrote to Dragonblade and said, I want to write for this person. And you guys gave me a chance. So here I am. My horses are right out my window here. And so when I need to sometimes just get away from the typewriter, I go out to the barn and I talk to my horses. So that horses quite often in my books.
Well, 4 boys is a lot too. I know. As soon as I have 3, and as soon as they outnumber you,
I always say girls. 2 was 2 was fine. 3 was really hard, and 4 put me over the edge. But I was by myself doing it, and they helped me on the farm very much, and it's been a huge part of our life. So, and I think in the books, because every time somebody would come that would want a lesson, every girl that I see or every woman is like, I always wanted to ride a horse. Mm-hmm. And you think about these stories with this knight coming in on this beautiful horse. And you got to think, how many women don't look at that guy? They're looking at that horse.
The horse.
And they're like,
I always wanted to ride.
The horse. I want to get on the horse. So horses are just such amazing creatures. And you put a man on a horse and he's still my heart.
That was something else that you said in your interview about wanting the guy to have a good horse. And I thought, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Who would you be impressed on that night or that cowboy if he was riding some skinny, bony nag that looked like he'd been beaten and not cared for?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So.
And have you ever been riding?
I have some real misadventures from riding. Yes,
No.
I did take horseback riding lessons, but they never got me past cantering, and it wasn't my fault. It was that they just never did. We did trail rides and cantering, but I could never get them to help me get the horse going. And
Yeah.
So, but I've had a couple of times where actually I went to someplace in Raleigh when I went to school. So I started at NC State, and
Oh, I
yeah,
coached
and
their team.
did you?
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I don't think they had a team when I went there, but
Oh,
I don't know. But we went to horseback ride, and I got this old horse. His name was Knight or something like that. And when I got up on it, whenever I tried to get him to go, he'd look up at me and snarl with these big yellow teeth, and I was just like, okay, this is how it's going to be. I rode around the rink. We just cantered around the rink for the entire time. My friends took off like something out of Wuthering Heights, and they were out there riding in the wind. And I was cantering with this doggedly mad horse. That's all I got.
oh.
I've
Well, I'm
never.
glad you didn't get hurt or anything like that.
No, my girlfriend had horses, and she invited me over when I was in the 10th grade. And she says, no problem. She says, the horses are across the street. It was a little 2-lane highway. So she said, we'll just ride them across and we'll get the saddles over there. And I said, sure, that's fine. So I get on the horse, bareback, has the reins, and a car rides by, spooks the horse. The horse takes off. I'm like a tick on that horse.
Oh, gosh.
So I never even told my mother about it. That horse took off. It leaped over fences.
Oh my goodness.
I was so scared I couldn't scream. They were running. They all went after
That
me.
could have gone very badly.
Could have gone badly. But it didn't. I don't think that horse could shake me off if it tried to. That was not. The horse was going to go down with me because I was not leaving the back of that horse. I had full grip on that horse. And then when I got off, we did not ride anymore. I was
Wow.
fate.
Well, I don't jump. I haven't jumped since I was in my 20s. I do something called dressage. And
I can't say that I jumped
fancy
either. I
one.
just held on.
yes, the top. Well, we don't wear top hats anymore, but top hat and tails. And
So you go over those
Mhm.
little things with the boards that if they touch them, the boards fall.
no.
No?
We're in a big empty arena, and you have to do different patterns, and you do different gaits within the gaits. So like in canter, there would be like an extended canter or a canter in place.
Yeah.
Same, or changing canter leads every 4 strides, every 3 strides, every 2 strides, every other stride. So it looks like the horse is skipping. An exaggerated trot, which is a passage, and a
sounds really
piaffe, which
pretty.
is a trot in place.
It just
Yeah, so
elegant.
I have a giant music system in my arena. So when the college team first came to me 20 years ago, I turned on the music, and they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "We're going to do dressage. We're dancing to music with our horse, and that's what it's about."
That
So
is so elegant.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
well, and I imagine
Yeah.
like the connection between the horse would have to be solid, to get them to
It
react as
does.
quickly as you would need them to.
It is a partnership. You are dancing together, and it's beautiful. And I always when we would go to the award ceremonies for the college, and we'd be in there with the hunter team, the hunter jumper team, and they'd have all these awards for all the different falls, the funniest fall, the worst fall, da da da. And so I would get up there as the coach and say, "Well, I coached the dressage team, and we don't fall off our horses." And the hunter jumper team booed me, but my team is cheering like crazy because it takes a lot of harmony with that horse. And I think the horses enjoy it. It makes their body feel very good and proud. So it's a beautiful sport, and it's all classical. It's based on military movements going back to Sparta, if you want to say
Yeah.
that. But
If you have to count on your horse for your
Love
life, you
to
have to
ride
really count on
horses.
your horse.
you really do. You have to be able to control it with your seat and legs, not your hands.
I
Your
would
hands
love.
need to be free for the sword.
Sounds like such a neat. I never got to do that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took horseback
Beautiful.
riding lessons too, but never anything. My mom was afraid of horses, and there was a girls' school near us that had them, and so she took my sister and I and her to get lessons because I think she was trying to get over her fear, which did not work. And then
Yeah.
my dad bought a horse and it showed up in our driveway, and he says for her, and I'm like, that's not for her. She did not want a horse, but it was an old trail horse, and that's the only time that I got thrown. We were going down to the neighbor's farm, and he decided he had enough of me and did not want to go where I wanted to go, and he stopped, and I went right over the top, and I thought,
my husband broke
did you ever wonder why you only mount a horse from the left side?
I know why.
And you keep your reins on the right side, especially true with the ladies in the side saddle, because your sword was always strapped on your left side. So if you didn't want to poke your horse with your sword, and it had to be out of the way.
But there's no physical reason that you have to do that.
Say that again, what?
Other than that, there's no physical reason you can't mount the horse from the other side.
No. And it's probably good for the horse to do it from both sides because, with the college team, we got horses donated to us, and they were always donated to us with problems. And the most common problem we saw was vertebrae that were messed up from just being pulled as they mount up on that side. Yeah.
That's so exciting. There is a horse in my book. There is a horse in my book. It plays a part. So
good.
Probably not. It doesn't have as much of an adventure as yours.
Well, I try to keep it. I try not to go overboard because I don't want to turn people off. But I think it's important that people realize how special the horses were, how much they were needed back then.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the universality of it too. It's like we all have horror stories because we all love the idea. It's like they're magic.
Yeah,
it sounds fabulous. I'm gonna have to read. I think I got the book, so I'm gonna read it. I haven't got.
Well, there's more horse stuff in the very first book. The second book, I tried to tone it way down.
There wasn't a lot of horse stuff in my first book, but there is in the second.
Okay.
I always have an
game
animal
for the Persian mom
and
the Scottish auntie too. So.
Yeah, the editor Scott said it was hilarious.
I can't wait to read it. I love the insertion of wit in the books, the funny stuff.
Good.
So we had a third book release this week. It's The Willful Widows. It's Elise Marion's book, and it was the second in the Lawless Ladies series. And I think the tagline for it was she'll steal his stuff and then she'll steal his heart or something like that, which I thought was kind of a brilliant idea. It's like she's going to take his things, and then when she has it, take his heart too. But hopefully Elise wasn't able to join us today. Hopefully she'll be able to join us next week. We have the next week's chat, or in one of the future weeks, so we can talk about her book then. But I'll make sure I put her book in addition to the other two in the links below the video. So if you haven't gotten them yet, you can definitely get them and have some New Year's Day reading. So do you guys? This is airing on New Year's Eve. Do you guys have New Year's plans this year? Do you make resolutions, or is there something special looking forward to other than just something other than 2021?
I'll be babysitting my grandson.
That's probably what I'll be
Another
doing
boy.
if my daughter gets over the flu.
Another boy.
Aww. I just have girls. Have girls. I had one daughter and she has two daughters, and so I just have girls.
Wow.
I love girls. Yeah. And I was not one. I never played with dolls. So now my big adaptation is the doll stuff. I was more of a tomboy.
It's funny. I had three boys, and I used to always we're always one step away from Lord of the Flies. And now the youngest one is reading Lord of the Flies. He said, "Mom, you're right."
Oh no.
He's just like that.
Oh.
Yes, it is. Without them, it's close sometimes.
It's funny.
Right?
My sister has just grandsons. She has three boys that are all grandsons. So she just, and a fourth probably on the way. So.
Oh, wow.
They're crazy people.
Ugh.
Like they're just crazy people.
Yeah.
They're just,
You can't feed them
one
enough.
sister, and I was ill-equipped. Nope, you can't feed them enough.
I can't.
And I imagine with the horses, that you could at least keep them busy enough to wear them out. Sometimes I think they're like border collies. You have to just wear them out, exhaust them, and then.
Let me tell you, that college team, of course, was mostly girls, and my boys were never more helpful than when that college team was on my farm. And all of a sudden they're carrying, bales of hay and
Well, that's the other thing, the showing off how strong you are.
Or how good they can ride, because they were pretty good. And my oldest son married one of them. So
Oh my goodness. Oh,
That's so fabulous.
That's its own romance novel right there. It's a perfect
That has to
setup.
be one right there. That's great.
It's the perfect setup. Ladies, it was so nice to talk to you this week. This has been a delight. We chatted for a long time. We started recording, which is why we started the chat laughing already. So I've had just a great afternoon talking to the two of you, and I really appreciate the time to do this. I'll make sure I put the links in the comments below the chat, so you can get Elisa's book. And we're wishing everybody a very, very happy new year and lots of good things in the new year. So we will see you next week in the brand new year with a brand new website.
Happy New Year, you guys.
Happy New Year.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.